guys, I'm Katie.
I'm Hannah.
And this is the podcast, Suspects, a show where we don't just want to feed you the true crime obsession,
but we want to shed light on some stories and situations that don't get a ton of attention. And today we have two really wild stories for you.
We're very excited. This is also our first podcast, so please bear with us if we make any mistakes. We are still getting the hang of it. So with our two cases today, Hannah and I decided that we were going to pick a theme for each podcast and then pick two cases that go within those themes to kind of keep it different every week so where we're not accidentally picking the same cases as well. So we do have two cases for this theme this week, and it's going to be individuals that have either murdered or killed their family and or their children. And I know mine is very, very heavy on the heart. What about yours, Hannah?
Oh, my gosh. Mine is just, devastating. When I first heard the story and started researching it, I was just bawling. It's just a bad situation all around.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear which one you pick. So we do want to just bring to the attention of the podcast that any case that we will be discussing obviously is very, very serious. Anything that we say regarding the case is not in a joking manner, but because it is such a deep situation, if we do have some jokes and some things that we try to say to keep the situation a little bit lighter, please understand that we're not joking about these victims or the situation or anything that happened to them. It is truly awful. We just want to make sure that we're not getting sucked down with the way the cases might make you feel.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
With that, Hannah, do you want to start or shall I?
Why don't you go first?
Okay, I will go first. Let me get my handy-dandy little notes here. And guys, please bear with us as well. As we do more episodes, we will get some more advanced technology, such as microphones and different things where the audio is a little bit better. But we're starting with what we have. So here we go. Okay. So my case today, Hannah, that I'm going to be telling you about is Andrea Yates. Have you ever heard of that case?
The name sounds familiar, but I don't know a ton of the details.
Okay, so it is a case that honestly a lot of you probably might have already heard of, but I don't know if you guys, like Hannah said, know all the dirty details, and it is very, very awful. So I will go ahead and get started with Andrea. So we'll start with just her story, how she started off, and then we'll get into the crime case. So Andrea was born July 2nd, 1964 in Houston, Texas. She graduated in 1982 as her class valedictorian. She was captain of the swim team. After Andrea graduated, she completed a 2-year nursing program at the University of Houston. So she's very smart, really likes to help people. She graduated in 1986 from nursing school, and she worked as an RN at the University of Texas from 1986 to 1994. So she was super into nursing, super into helping people. That was her passion as she was growing up. So Andrea met her husband, Rusty Yates, at 25 at their apartment complex in Houston. That's an interesting place to meet somebody, is your apartment complex. Andrea didn't start dating until she was 23. And before meeting Rusty, she was recovering from a previous relationship. And although she was shy and reserved, she did initiate the conversation with Rusty. Eventually, her and Rusty did move in together, and they spent most of their time in a religious study and prayer. So they were very, very religious. Andrea was very into different religions, not just one specifically, which is kind of scary, I would think. In 1993, April of 1993, her and Rusty got married, and they told guests that they planned on having as many children as nature would allow, which is also kind of scary.
Yes.
During the first 8 years of their marriage, they had 5 children. That is crazy. That's like a baby every year and a half.
Sounds
they
kind of
had,
awesome.
Yeah, right. Kind of awesome.
I can't lie.
Right. I think it depends on who you are. I would love to have 5 children in 8 years, but other people, I worry about their mindset.
Yeah, that's true.
So their 5 children consisted of 4 boys and 1 girl, and their names were Noah, John, Paul, Luke, and Mary. Love all of those names. Let's just stop right there for a second.
There's some biblical names right there.
Right. So they were very religious. All their kids
wow.
had Bible names.
This kind of freaks me out even more.
Right. I know. It makes it almost more creepy that, like, she had all children that were named after people in the Bible, and then the way the story ends.
Yeah, for real.
So after her second child, Andrea stopped doing activities that she enjoyed before. So she was really into things like jogging, swimming, of course, because she was the captain of her swim team, and a bunch of other different things. She kind of lost her interest for cleaning, just kind of really the motivation to do anything at all, really. Her friends said that she had become reclusive. Her isolation only increased after they decided to homeschool all 5 of the children. Right. Yeah. So
starting to sound a little culty more than Christian.
Right. I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what it is, and you don't even know all of the details.
Oh gosh.
So in 1996, Rusty accepted a job in Florida, and the family moved into a, get this, 38-foot trailer in Simone, Florida.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So it's not just you and your husband, but all 5 of your kids living in a 38-foot trailer. What?
Oh my, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I mean, what would your sanity at that point would be out of the window, like, no question.
I mean, my parents' first home was like a 700 square foot home, and when my youngest sister added to the mix, 700 square feet became too little for the 4 of us. I cannot imagine that many people in one tiny little space.
7 of them. That's wild.
Oh,
and I
gosh.
lived in a trailer probably until I was like 11 or 12. But even at that, like, with 2 teenagers and a dad, like, that was annoying. Like, we did not have our own space at all.
Yeah, for real. I cannot. Oh my gosh. I mean, hey, you got to do what you got to do sometimes. I get it. But wow.
Right.
What a stressful childhood. Yeah.
Wow. So in 1997, after moving to Florida, they returned to Houston, but they remained living in the trailer because her husband, Rusty, wanted to live light.
Okay.
In the very in the very next year, Rusty purchased a 350 square foot renovated bus as their permanent home.
A bus?
A bus, yeah, a bus that they renovated.
Okay. I mean, like, that sounds like a cool, like, vacation situation.
Right. I mean, I feel like if it was just you and your wife and you guys were hippies, like, heck yeah, get a bus, drive that thing around America. But you have 5 kids, like a baby.
Oh
you
my
have a
gosh.
newborn baby.
Yeah, this whole bus thing is giving me total, like, Manson family vision, like, cult everywhere.
Right. That's exactly what I thought when I first heard that.
Oh, gosh.
So we'll continue. So Rusty purchased the bus from a guy named, and I might butcher his name completely, but he purchased the bus from a guy named Michael Warnecki. And Michael Warnecki was a traveling minister whose views influenced their views. And Rusty only agreed with some of his ideas, but Andrea embraced the extreme ones.
Oh.
So let me tell you a little bit about Michael. He's a kind of an interesting character here, and that's somebody that you would probably really want in your life. Michael preached that a woman's role was derived from the sin of Eve, and bad mothers who are bound for hell create bad children who also go to hell. He had a profound influence on her beliefs, her words, and her actions. Michael also teaches that women who work or practice birth control are witches.
Oh.
Super interesting.
Like, okay, here's the thing. That first part of his thinking, you know, if you look at the logic of it, you can kind of see where someone could get sucked into that mindset, because it's like, you know, if you're a bad mom, you're going to breed bad kids, whatever. I guess you could kind of follow the logic of, like, if you suck, you might make your kids suck.
Right.
But then it's just total psychosis mixed in there. Like, birth control makes you a witch. What was that?
Right.
What was the other thing that makes you a witch?
Birth control, and let me see here, and women who go to work.
Okay, so if you work or use birth control, you're a witch.
Right. That was what he was preaching. And I agree with you. I agree that I see where he was trying to go with the mothers who are bound for hell create bad children who also go to hell.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still not 100% logical. I can see where he was trying to go, but then he just turned it into his own little, like, crazy thing.
Yeah. I just said that because, like, cults fascinate me, and, I mean, in a weird way, of course. Like, I'm not off to join a cult. But it's always interesting to me to, like, look and see, okay, how do people even get sucked into this world? So, you know, I just try and see, like, if there's, like, even a nugget of some normalcy that must be what sucks them in. But this dude just sounds like a total whack job. Right.
How do you even spiral to letting that stop to get to that point? I get completely what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, after Andrea met Michael, her behavior and her beliefs changed drastically, obviously. She originally had wanted to continue working as a nurse because I mentioned she was very passionate about that. And then afterwards, she took up the belief that women are weak and sinful and should stay at home. So I just can't imagine. Like, let me just stop here for a second. Like, you're living in this 350 square foot bus with your 5 children and your husband, who really doesn't seem like he cares how you're thinking, you know? And the one thing that you love, you decided that you're not going to go back and do. So now at this point, you really have nothing except for this Michael guy to listen to.
Yeah. Like, I could see, you know, maybe if their needs required her to stay home, like maybe if childcare was just way too much with that many children staying at home, like one of the parents staying home, I could see that. But, like, it sounds to me like she's allowing her husband and this cult leader to just sort of dictate everything.
Right, yeah.
Like, do you know if their financial situation, like, dictated her to stay home, or at least one of them to stay home, or was this just totally a choice?
Yeah, I mean, by all the information that I found online, I read a lot of different articles, and none of them made it sound like this was a financial decision that caused them to do this. Every article made it sound like every decision that they decided to do was so that they could live lighter and not really stress about other things and kind of be more in tune with their religious practices, not any other reason. So I think that she genuinely just wanted to get it.
Because I know that there are situations where, like, childcare is not cheap.
Right.
I'm a babysitter.
Definitely not.
I know I'm not cheap to take care of other people's kids, and I know daycares and things. So I know, like, sometimes, you know, there is no other choice but to have one parent stay home because it's just simply more cost effective. But if you're doing it because you're a crazy person, that's a whole other thing, which sounds like this is the situation.
Right. So after she decided that she should stay at home, Michael would write Andrea letters while she was at home, stating things in the letters such as, God knows how wicked you are.
Oh.
You must accept that this reality is your life and is under the curse of death and sin. And then also things like, you are a daughter of Eve, you must become a daughter of the Most High. Which, that last one isn't as bad, and I completely agree with that from a religious standpoint, but I think that he was using it more in a threatening way rather than the way religion should be, where it's like, no, like, he loves you, like, he wants to embrace you and accept you for what you've done, not, you need to do this or you're going to be damned kind of thing, you know?
Right. I completely agree. Like, is there anything in her behavior thus far to, like, indicate that she's living I don't mean to, like, point fingers or anything, but is her behavior abnormal? Because at this point, it just sounds like she's sort of a mom who's devoted to her husband in this cult.
Right. So that's what we're about to get into now, because at first that's all it was. Like, she was just very devoted. You know, she stopped working, just spending time with the kids. That's all it was. But then something else takes over her. So Andrea was so captivated by Michael that both her family and her husband, Rusty, were concerned. So we're going to skip to June 16th of 1999. Rusty's at work, and Andrea called Rusty and frantically begged him to come home. Rusty came home from work to find her shaking and chewing on her fingers involuntarily. Andrea that day was hospitalized after taking an overdose of pills, trying to commit suicide. She was transferred to a psychiatric unit and diagnosed with a major depressive order. The medical staff described Andrea as invasive in discussing her problems. On June 24th, she was prescribed an antidepressant and released. Which kind of bothers me. Like, you hear a lot of stories, like especially a lot of crime cases where it's like they just go to the hospital really quick and they're released a week later, and it's almost like, no, like they need to stay there. Like, they need to stay there.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's terrible. So once home, Andrea refused to take her medication. She began to self-mutilate and refused to feed her children because she felt like they were eating too much.
Wow.
Yeah, which is terrible. I would never do that.
That's awful.
She thought that there were video cameras and that people and that the characters on TV were talking to her and her children. She told Rusty about her hallucinations, but neither of them informed her psychiatrist, who later during her trial testifies that she was among the 5 sickest patients that she's ever seen. No, you're fine. We'll order you a sign for your room that says podcast in session.
I need one.
I'm in the living room, on my living room floor right now.
Oh, gosh, I need my own place so bad.
I have my own, and it still doesn't get better. So we'll skip to July 20th. So this is about a month after she had been released from the psychiatrist initially. So July 20th, Andrea put a knife to her neck and begged her husband to let her die.
Wow.
Yeah, terrible. At this point, it's like, okay, your wife, like, this was just a month ago that she got released, and it's obviously like, she's not taking her medication, and you know that. So it's like, I feel like there comes to be a point where, like, if you know somebody is not capable of helping themselves, like, one, you need to help them, but not only that, like, you have 5 kids that this woman is taking care of every day. Like, you're not worried?
Right. It's damaging to her and them.
Right. And, like, you have 5.
Like, not even just to their mental health, but, like, the heartbreak of watching their mother suffer.
Right. And them being young and not being able to completely understand why their mother is so hateful to them.
Yeah.
So after she put the knife to her neck and begged her husband to let her die, she obviously was hospitalized again, and she stayed in a catatonic state for 10 days. Her condition seems to improve after being treated with injections of antipsychotics. Rusty, her husband, was optimistic about drug therapy because Andrea appeared more like she was when they first met. Andrea's psychiatrist warned the couple that having another baby might bring on psychotic behavior, so that they should not have any more children. Andrea's family urged Rusty to buy a home instead of a cramped bus, which should have been an obvious years ago, I feel like. He purchased a nice home. It was in a peaceful neighborhood. Her condition continued to improve, and she started doing previous hobbies again. She was jogging, swimming, cooking, cleaning. She interacted well with her kids. So it was just really, everything started to look up once she bought this house. She was doing really, really great. She was on her medicine, feeling really good. She expressed to Randy that she had high hopes for the future, but she viewed their time living on the bus as her failure.
Wow.
Yeah, which I think is a little crazy because he was the one that I feel like was kind of pushing towards that.
Yeah. That's, I mean, mental illness it's such a liar. So,
it is. It's the number one thing. It's a big liar.
Yeah.
So, March of 2000, at Randy's urging, Andrea became pregnant, and she stopped taking her antipsychotic medicine.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
November 30th, 2000, Their new baby girl, Mary, was born, and Andrea was coping very well. March 2001, Andrea's father died, and her mental state regressed. She stopped talking, refused liquids, mutilated herself, and refused to feed baby Mary. She also frantically was reading her Bible. Yes. So here we get to the deep stuff here. So end of March, Andrea is admitted to a different hospital. Her new psychiatrist briefly prescribed her with antipsychosis medicine. She was released only to return in May. She was released after 10 days and advised by her psychiatrist to think positive thoughts. That was their advice to her after everything that she had already been through.
Think positive thoughts.
Yep,
okay.
That was literally.
If I was that person, I'd be like, oh, okay, haven't tried that. Think.
Right. Literally, it's like, okay, think positive thoughts. You don't think that I've been doing that like that.
I mean, you just said she was frantically reading her Bible. Clearly, she is doing everything she can think of to try and, quote, think positive thoughts, but clearly that's not fixing her actual mental illness.
Right. I mean, it's terrible that he would even say that to her, because it's like,
it's terrible.
I don't even know. I can't even form a thought on that, because it's like, if we said just think positive thoughts to everybody out here that have some sort of mental illness, it's like the world would literally be in shambles. Like, it would be.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even, that's a whole rabbit trail I can't even get into.
Right. It's a whole rabbit trail. Okay. So June 20th, 2001, Rusty left for work, and he had his mother coming about an hour after he left for work to help Andrea. And that 1 hour would prove to be the worst mistake of his life. So during that 1 hour, Andrea began to act out thoughts that had consumed her for nearly 2 years. She filled the bathtub with water, and beginning with Paul, drowned her 3 youngest boys. Then placed them on her bed. Yep. And then placed them on her bed and covered them. Mary, who was 3 months old at the time, was left floating in the tub. The last child alive was her oldest, 7 years old, Noah. Asked Mom what's wrong with Mary, and then turned around and ran away when he realized what was going on. Andrea caught him as he was screaming and dragged him back to the bathroom and forced him into the tub next to Mary's floating body. He fought desperately, coming up for air twice, but she held him down until he was dead. Then she picked up Mary's body and brought her to the bed, placing her in the arms of her lifeless brother.
Wow.
Yep, terrible. She then called the police herself with no explanation as to what was going on, just as they needed to send an officer to her house as soon as possible, then called her husband Rusty, only saying, "It's time," over and over again.
Oh, my.
Very, very awful, I know.
I just have no words.
I know. I mean, it's so terrible, because it's like, this poor lady, I mean, you want to say this poor lady, but then you think about the fact, like, okay, she murdered her 5 children, but she was just not in the right mind, and she was just not herself. She needed help, and she was not getting the help that she needed, and because she didn't get that help she needed, it tragically resulted in this.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I don't want to say that she's completely, innocent or anything, because, I mean, she still took the lives of 6 children. But,
right.
Was it 5 or 6?
5.
Okay, she took the lives of 5 children. But, I mean, mental health is so vitally important. I mean, there's no mentally healthy murderer in the world, I would argue. Like, I don't think you can have good mental health and be a murderer. Like, I just don't think those two things are possible. I think it's outside of, like, human nature to just kill one another without something being wrong. Or, I mean, clearly, like, acts of self-defense, I don't think that's murder. That's totally different.
You're right.
But, oh my gosh, this is just, I just keep thinking about the kids and, like, their final moments, especially the 7-year-old that ran away. I mean, his last moments is realizing that his mom has just killed all of his siblings.
Right, and that he was next.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely terrible, like, just thinking about those children. I mean, the oldest one was 7, and the youngest one was 3 months old. So it's just
babies.
Terrible. So we'll talk a little bit about the trial, and then I will be done with my case. So she obviously confessed to drowning her children. There is no doubt about that. Prior to her second trial, she told Dr. Michael Wellner that she waited for Rusty to leave for work that morning before filling the bathtub because she knew he would have prevented her from harming them. After the murders, police found the family dog locked up, and Rusty advised Wellner that it had normally been allowed to run free, and was so when he had left the house that morning, leading the psychiatrist to allege that she locked it in a cage to prevent it from interfering with her killing the children one by one. Although the defense expert testimony agreed that Yates was psychotic, Texas law requires that in order to successfully assert the insanity defense, the defendant must prove that he or she could not discern right from wrong at the time of the crime. In March 2002, a jury rejected the insanity defense and found her guilty. Although the prosecution had sought the death penalty, the jury refused that option. The trial court sentenced her to life imprisonment in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice with eligibility for parole in 40 years. On January 6, 2005, a Texas Court of Appeals reversed the conviction because California psychiatrist and prosecution witness Dr. Park Dietz admitted that he had given maternally false testimony during the trial. So basically what happened with that, I'll kind of just explain it because if you read it, it's kind of confusing. So basically during her original trial, they had a witness testify that, so this specific witness had basically been on like the planning team for like the Law and Order episodes. Even though he was like a psychiatrist, he helped like come out with like certain episodes. And there was a Law and Order episode that had been created where a woman essentially drowned all of her kids. The same thing. So back in her original trial, this expert testified that this episode had come out like the day before she did this, basically. So essentially saying that she saw the episode and that's what made her decide to do that. But years later, they found out that that episode hadn't even been aired on TV for her to get that idea before she did it, kind of thing. Nice. So because he had testified that, and that wasn't the truth at all, they basically had to redo her trial. So on January 9th, 2006, Yates again entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, and on February 1st, 2006, she was granted release on bail on the condition that she would be admitted to a mental health treatment facility. On July 26, 2006, after 3 days of deliberations, Yates was found not guilty by reason of insanity as defined by the state of Texas. She was committed to the North Texas State Hospital Vernon campus. In January 2007, she was moved to the Kerrville State Hospital, a low-security mental facility in Kerrville, Texas. So that is where she will spend the rest of her days, is at a mental facility and not in prison, hopefully getting the help that she deserves. I'm sure it's a hard realization once you come back to the right mindset, you know, I just killed my 5 kids.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be, you know, a horrible thing to realize once you are getting into the right state of mind. I agree that she should be in a mental facility because, like, that's where she needs help. But I gotta say I'm okay with the fact that she's going to spend the rest of her life there, given the fact that she did take 6 lives, even though, you know, she was not of the right mindset when it happened. And I have some mercy for that. like, I hope, like, she's not suffering for the rest of her life, but I also don't think she should just be able to get to enjoy freedom while her children are dead.
Right, and I completely agree. You know, it breaks my heart, obviously, that the postpartum psychosis, like, all of it put together just tragically resulted in that. But I do agree with you where, as sad as that is, those people still have to be accountable for their actions, and whether that's in a jail, a prison, or a mental hospital, it is still important that they are getting the help that they need, wherever that is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is the Andrea Yates case. And the last thing I'll say about that is a lot of people were mad that her husband wasn't charged with anything because the psychiatrist told him multiple times not to leave the children alone with her. And
yeah, even though it should be neglect.
Right. So even though it was an hour, and that in his mind wasn't a lot, well, in that whole hour, you lost your family.
Yeah.
So that is my case for the day.
Well, that was actually pretty good transition. Both parents sort of being at least partially responsible. My story is of two parents who have equal responsibility. So I'm going to jump right into the story. On March 26, 2018, an SUV was discovered having gone off a cliff in California. And originally, it appeared to be an accident because, you know, it's a winding road, it's a cliff. It appeared to be an accident. But it didn't take very long to figure out that there was definitely some sort of premeditation behind this crash. So the people that were in the vehicle was Jennifer and Sarah Hart, and they were the mothers of 6 adopted children: Marcus, who is 19, Jeremiah and Abigail, who were 14, Devontae, who is 15, Hannah, who is 16, and Sierra, who was 12. At the time of the crash, they were living in Woodland, Washington, but they had been moving all around the country. A theory was that they were avoiding some skeletons that were hiding in their closet, and I'm going to tell you all about that right now.
Oh, great. Let's hear it.
So the couple met in college. I don't want to tell a ton of their story just because I don't care to give these women any more time than they deserve. But they met in college. They were both education majors. They studied early education, which when you hear what they've done is absolutely terrifying. So they became parents in 2006, and they adopted Abigail and Marcus, who were biological siblings.
See, I love stories like that. You know, my mom is adopted and has all of her biological siblings with her still.
Yeah, and I am so glad that your family ended up with John and Wanda and not Jennifer and Sarah, because they're crap.
Yeah.
So, beginning 2 years after they became parents, all the crap started happening. In 2008, 2 years after they became parents, they were living in Minnesota, and there was a call to the police saying that Jennifer had struck one of the children's arms. So one of the children had a bruise on their arm. And there was a whole investigation into it where Jennifer and Sarah admitted that they hit her with a belt because they stated that she had food issues that included stealing other people's food at school and eating out of garbage cans or off the floor.
What?
So that's why they decided to hit her with the belt. But because the bruise resulted from her falling down the stairs, the charges were dropped, the investigation ended.
What? No! If she fell down the stairs, she got pushed or hit too hard. What?
Right. Okay, so it just goes on from here, okay? In February of 2009, they finalized the adoption of Jeremiah, Sierra, and Devontae. So they got 3 more kids a year later. Then, in 2010, just a year later, there was another allegation of abuse when one of the children told her teacher that she had, quote, owies on her tummy and her back.
Oh, no, I just got chill bumps all over my body.
The story she told her teacher was that her mom put her in the bathtub and turned on cold water and hit her with a closed fist because she had found a penny in her pocket.
What? This poor little girl.
Yeah, the girl said that Jennifer hit her because she said she found it, and it all continued that way. She was beaten in a bathtub because her mother found a penny in her pocket.
Oh my gosh.
It's just crazy to me.
It's so sickening.
Mhm. So after that, Sarah admitted she pled guilty to malicious punishment of a child. And guess what? I don't even understand how. I couldn't find anything else to explain why, but the charges were dropped.
Oh my gosh.
Because it was dropped, and then it was labeled a misdemeanor domestic assault.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it went from malicious punishment of a child, which would have been like an actual conviction. The children probably would have been removed, to a misdemeanor domestic assault where she only had to serve a year of community service and probation.
And the children got to stay.
Mhm. Yep. And two days after her conviction, all of the kids, they were in kindergarten to 7th grade at that point, were pulled out of public school system, and they're going to be homeschooled.
Oh my gosh. Of course. It's almost like when charges get dropped like that, it just makes the parent more mad, which is why they got pulled out of school. Okay, now you're not going to go to school, and now you're not going to be able to tell your teachers what's going on.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what I see happening here too. 100% see the pattern. It doesn't really say who called the police when the bruise was on the child's arm, but I mean, definitely when the teacher reported this story, magically they're all pulled out of public school. What is that?
Yeah, right. You're not split, Jennifer.
This sounds like a complete cover-up to me.
Yeah.
That was actually Sarah that was charged for this in this situation.
Oh. Okay.
Mhm. And then when they moved to Woodland, Washington, where the family lived when the children were killed, there were several neighbors who came forward saying that in the middle of the night the kids would come out and come to their house asking for food.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So, these kids are being physically abused. They're being starved. We don't even know what else comes about. One caseworker reported that the kids complained of racist behavior. Another witness said that the kids, quote, were extremely disciplined, almost to the point of being robotic. They would walk single file to the bedroom, and they were told when to go to the bathroom.
What? Okay. I've never heard this story before, so one, I just want to say this is a good one to pick. But two, I want to say, what the heck? I just want to talk to these ladies.
Yeah, I think we all would. So on March 23rd, Child Protective Services went out to do a check because I guess Washington finally started to figure out that there was a pattern here, and they were going to go do a well check on the kids. And nobody answered the door. The next day was when Jennifer and Sarah packed up their families and began their drive down to California.
Oh.
Yeah. So all of this is going down. History of abuse, crossing state lines. There were also some other reports in Texas, but I couldn't completely verify them, and I couldn't get the complete story, so I couldn't share all that information. But a few of the children were adopted in Texas, and there were other cases in Texas. So, all in all, moving around state to state, there were 5 different states involved with the adoptions and abuse allegations.
Oh, my goodness, these poor kids. It's almost like, at this point, like, why keep the kids? You know, like, it's obviously causing you stress, too, so why are you even doing this?
Yeah, I agree. And I think all of it was catching up to them, and I think that they realized that people were starting to piece it together. So on March 23rd, when the police came knocking, I think they knew what was going to happen. Yeah. So I think that's when this thing started rolling.
Oh.
So this next part is really disturbing to me. This is the most disturbing part of all of it for me. So when the bodies were recovered, and I'll go more into that in a second, Jennifer had 5 beers in her system. So Jennifer was intoxicated. And the whole time they're driving down, the search history on Sarah's phone included these searches amongst other horrific things. One search was, how easily can I overdose on over-the-counter medicines? Can 500 milligrams of Benadryl kill a 125-pound woman?
Oh. How
long does it take to die from hypothermia while drowning in a car?
Oh. What? Casey Anthony Jr., what?
Yeah. So they're driving down the road, the kids, I mean, I don't know if the kids knew what was going on or not. None of us know. There's no way to know. None of them survived. But they're driving down the road. The kids could potentially be thinking this is a family vacation, or maybe they're even thinking we're moving again. And all the while, one of their moms is intoxicated to probably prepare herself for what she's about to do. And their other mom is searching how to kill herself, kill her wife, and kill her children.
Oh, my God. This is so sick. Like, these poor kids, they're probably thinking, like, oh, wow, moms are being nice today.
Yeah. And at first, only Jennifer, Sarah, and 3 of the children were identified at the scene of the crash, because they crashed it into the water, I believe. Jen was obviously found to be intoxicated. Sarah and 2 of the children tested positive for I'm going to really butcher this pronunciation, but diphenhydramine, which it is an active ingredient in Benadryl. So at least 2 of the children had Benadryl in their system. 2 weeks later, Sierra's body was found on a beach north of the cliff. So she was found, and the most disturbing, parts of a foot were found in a shoe on a beach that May. So 2 months after, a part of a foot was found in a shoe on a beach. But investigators couldn't identify the remains as a heart child until January of 2019, when a DNA sample proved it was Hannah.
Wow, so recently.
Yeah, and Devontae is still missing. Investigators believe he was in the crash. They just haven't recovered his body. But they're still hopeful that someone in the public will come forward and prove him to be alive still. But nothing has come out yet. So either he is deep in hiding, or someone hasn't come forward. But investigators believe that's a really unlikely possibility. They really believe that he was in the vehicle and his body just hasn't been recovered.
That's so sad. So Sarah and Jessica both died?
Yes. Sarah and Jennifer both died.
Jennifer, not Jessica.
And it's confirmed that 5 of their children died. But their middle child, Devontae, is still missing.
It's just so crazy that you would do that. Like, why, if you're to the point where you realize you don't want these children anymore, you shouldn't have adopted them, why kill them and yourself? Why not just give them back? Okay, here, you know what, I'm not going to be the best mom. I'm going to go ahead and deal with all of the things that I've already done and give the kids back. I'm not going to deal with all the things that I've done. I'm going to kill myself and the kids to get rid of everything, you know?
Right. I mean, that's definitely a healthy and selfless mindset, but witnesses said to investigators that the mindset that they observed from Jennifer and Sarah was if they couldn't have those kids, then no one else is going to.
That's so sick.
Yeah, and these are women who met in college and were early education majors and portrayed this Facebook perfect family. But they just, they portrayed this idea of a happy family. They would post pictures on Facebook all the time of them wearing matching T-shirts and saying things like love always wins. And, they're just portraying this idea of like this loving family. But clearly there was a lot of really dark stuff going on in their home.
Yeah, that's terrible. I mean, and I think it even hits even harder because of how recent it was,
Yes. And of course, because Jennifer and Sarah both died, there wasn't the ability to have like a typical trial. But on April 4th, 2019, the coroner's office announced that a 14-person jury unanimously ruled that Jennifer and Sarah Hart intended for their 6 children to die along with them when Jennifer Hart drove her family off a cliff in 2018. So their their manner of death will be listed for the 6 kids as homicide, and Jennifer and Sarah will be listed as suicide. And those 14 jurors also had the opportunity to list manner of death as accident, suicide, natural causes, or at the hands of another person, and every single one of them unanimously decided it was homicide. There is no other way to put it.
Oh, well, I'm glad that they decided that. That's awful. I mean, that's so awful. There's so many people out here that, would love to adopt kids or love to have their own and just don't have the resources to do so, whether that's within their own body or, financial resources, and it's terrible. You could have found a family for each of those kids without doing that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so many couples waiting on long lists to be parents, and these women somehow got 6 kids and just abused them for the entire time they had them and then murdered them.
Oh, that's terrible. I've never heard that story.
Yeah, it's horrible. And everything I read just really pointed to the need for more communications between states about histories of abuse and abuse reporting. I mean, this case is just a prime example of it, because these women were able to move to different states and their abuse history just didn't follow them. And were able to continue adopting children with abuse in their past, which I don't even understand, because I know a family that fosters kids, and I know your uncle just adopted a kid out of foster care. And, I think we both know how rigorous it is, for them and their loving, beautiful families who want to give these kids great homes, and they have to jump through all these hoops. But then these people who just abuse their kids and neglect them just seem to get kid and kid and kid and kid, and it's just what is going on?
Yeah, it's who is your caseworker? I just want to know. I just want to talk to them, because what?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, this story was very heavy, obviously, because adoption and fostering is so close to my family specifically, with my mom and then my aunt and my uncle and now my new cousin, Lucas, super cute, by the way. So it's awful to hear stuff like this, when you just know so many of these situations that go great and they change the kid's life, and that's what's supposed to happen, and that's what those kids were expecting to happen, and then they all get murdered instead of really getting their life turned around, which is what adoption should be.
Yeah. Adoption should just be beautiful.
Yeah.
Because whether your biological parents abandoned you or weren't good parents, or if they died, whatever it is, or if they just simply couldn't take care of you on their own, like your new family, people who chose you should be willing to love you and cherish you and give you the kind of life that you deserve. But these moms were just despicable people and, I mean, ruined and ended their children's lives.
Yeah.
It just makes me crazy.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's awful. And the biggest thing, like you said, people who chose to do this to you as well. That's terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Well, those are both good cases.
Yeah, it was a wild ride, man.
It was a wild ride, man. I hope everybody was buckled up the whole time. Well, guys, thank you. That was our first podcast, like I said, so hopefully this audio sounds pretty good and you guys enjoyed this. Hannah and I will be discussing personally when the next episode will be. What should our next theme be?
Oh, I'd love to do a good human trafficking case.
Okay, you want to do that?
Yeah.
All right, let me write that down. All right, so we're going to do a human trafficking case for our next podcast. So, if you guys like this podcast, please make sure to share it to any of your crime junkie friends. Hannah and I would greatly appreciate that. This is something that we're both obviously pretty interested in, and if we can use this as a platform to maybe change some lives or some lives or bring light to other things, that is definitely what we want to do. So if you guys have any suggestions, any cases that you would like to hear us dive more into detail on, please just reach out to us. I'm sure eventually we'll set up maybe some sort of Instagram where we can post some of the evidence that we talk about on here and things so that you guys can reach out to us as well on there. But until then, Hannah, do you have anything that you'd like to say?
Nope.
Sorry.
I'm so unprepared for this.
No, you're fine. If you guys can't tell, Hannah and I have been actually talking about this for a while, but we kind of just were like, okay, Sunday at 5, let's do it. And then we were both running late. So, like I said, sorry, it'll get better. Bear with us. Buckle up. It's a wild ride.
Yes.
Well, until then, guys, we appreciate you so much, and we hope you enjoyed this. Bye.
Bye.